All right, guys, welcome back to part two. Self-tapes, they can go on and on and on. I've done the exact same thing, but I think it all comes down to why we're doing this in the first place and having fun with it. If you're not having fun doing it, I'm not having fun watching it. So get up there and go have a good time, because sometimes, even a few days ago, I got a tape and I wanted it really bad. I was really hungry for it, so I did it over and over and over and over again, because I was like, well, that wasn't quite perfect, or my hair was out of place in that one. I did really like it, and he's like, Maddie, if they're focusing on your hair, the tape isn't very good in and of itself.
Yeah.
But the reason you get into this is to play pretend, to have fun, to play pretend, get out there, make these wild characters, and trust that you can do it.
Yes, trust. I think that's a big thing. I do want to say something funny about the hair comment, though, because this might contradict literally everything we've said on this episode. But I have a friend, and she's quite successful. She's in Ireland filming right now. She just wrapped another movie.
That's so cool.
She's done it. She's done it, right? Also from Winnipeg. But she told me how once she was up for a role, and I guess one of the other actresses had hair kind of similar to how she had hers in her tape. And she was pinned for the longest time. And, you know, she's in talks with her agents. And she's like, okay, well, send them this picture of me with my hair like this, so it's different from the lead. Who knows if that's the reason? But her agent did. And that afternoon she got it. So
that is either the wildest coincidence, or I need to never listen
so it's
to
like
anything my brother ever says again.
Like I said, this might be contradicting everything we've just said, but regardless, literally, I have done the exact same thing, and it's so tough because on the one hand, like for me, I'm really passionate about makeup. I've worked as a makeup artist. I teach makeup classes. So one of the little ways that I make a tape fun is by creating a makeup look that I think the character would wear.
I love that.
But sometimes I'll thank you. So it kind of makes it like personal, but it's also something that I enjoy aside from the whole debacle of the taping and the bureaucracy.
Within the realm of creation.
All within the realm of creation. Now with that being said, I will sometimes, maybe take it, I don't know if I want to say take it too far, but I will get very particular. I for sure have looked back at tapes and been like, wow, I am a creature that lives beneath a bridge. Like, I need a nose job. But it's this thing where, again, it's like, okay, if I was just perfect in whatever, physical, artistic, whatever it happens to be, right? And, I've like I said, I've rewatched tapes and I go back and I'm like, and I go on Instagram and then it's like, oh my gosh, the girl who got that thing that I auditioned for is so much prettier than me, or, oh, she's so much younger than me. And then, I've definitely had moments where I'm supposed to be like at peace and I'm like,
Yeah, I actually have had an ultimate moment of having to be at peace. And having those kind of thoughts creep in and just going, what the fuck? Because this was supposed to be the hour that I've carved out in my day to feel lovely. But thank you. I remember months ago, I was in a very dark place because I had been recently diagnosed with PCOS, and that came with a lot of different side effects that I had a really hard time adjusting to. And I had noticed they all kind of hit at once. So I was very, very hypercritical of myself. And anytime I got a tape, it was like everything was just amplified to an extent where I was like, I don't deserve anything. Obviously, I'm not going to get any of this stuff. I just felt so incredibly low. And I was in a yoga class. I was in a hot yoga class, and we did a bunch of flow, and then we were told to lay in Shavasana, and she was going to go through this kind of guided meditation where she didn't say too much, but I'm sitting there, and I'm supposed to be in this moment of peace, thanking myself, as she said, for carving this time out of my day, for being exactly who I am, and showing up as I am, and accepting and appreciating and loving that, because that's the whole practice of yoga. And I was just thinking, okay, but if I had a different nose, if I did this, if I did that, if I, whatever, buccal fat, you name it.
No.
If I did all the things, would that benefit everything in my life? It can always be worse.
Perspective.
And, you have to be really grateful. At the time, had to go into a place of, I have running water, and I have a safe bed to sleep in at night, and I have food in my fridge, and I have all these things, and I think it's really easy to forget real life when we're in such a at times, superficial career.
Oh my gosh, totally. And like, even, I'm sure you probably felt this way, but I will look back at pictures, from, when I was, 19, 20, 21. And, I grew up as a dancer, and I'm sure a lot of dancers can relate to this. I struggled with an eating disorder, and I remember looking back at these pictures, and at the time feeling like I was so ugly, just to my core, and fat, as if that's a bad thing. But I was 92 pounds. Like, I was starving. I was literally starving. And I, not to sound conceited or anything, but I look back and I was like, I was beautiful, and I didn't see it. And I feel like we don't appreciate where we're at, or the things that we're going through, for better or for worse, until they're gone. Right? And everything, this too shall pass, for better or for worse. And I think gratitude is I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's honestly something that I've been struggling with recently, and I'm trying to get back there. But I remember, I just feel so much better when I'm doing it. I have that 5-minute journal, and I remember, it was a couple years ago. It was when I found out that I was pinned for blood, and I don't that is something that I've noticed about myself, and feel free to chime in. It almost takes an external factor for me to become happy about where I'm at in my life and in the industry, or to become sad about where I'm at in my life and in the industry. And I don't like that. That's something that I'm still working really hard on. But I try to ride the wave. I try to give myself grace. But I had found out that I was pinned for blood. And I was like, okay, I'm turning a leaf. Like, here we go. So I got this gratitude journal, and it's so funny because I find that gratitude begets gratitude. So I noticed I was walking to work, and it was a super sunny day, and I was talking to someone at the time, and he was really lovely, and things were going well. And I was like, I'm so grateful for this, amazing iced coffee, and it's so sunny, and I'm grateful for my job, and I'm grateful for this person, and I'm grateful for this, and I'm grateful for that. And it was just it kept going, and I felt so fulfilled, even though nothing had actually changed. But my perspective was night and day. And I think, honestly, and maybe that sounds a bit harsh, but I think it's disrespectful to yourself to not practice gratitude. I think also too, just being able to separate your art and your life, and being grateful that you can do that, and not making things so precious, because, it's flux and flow of both things.
I 100% agree. And I have spent a lot of my life, well, not really my life, but I've spent a lot of the time that I've been professionally acting relating my self-worth to what's going on with my career. If I'm getting tons of callbacks, if I'm auditioning a lot, if I'm gonna book something. And I've had times in the recent past where I felt super bummed, and then I get this audition I feel is perfect for me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, but my life is so wonderful. And it completely 180s, and I hate that. I hate that relationship. But I think even to tie into the things we were just talking about even just altering yourself and turning inward. I saw this beautiful post that made me so emotional when I first saw it. And it was this woman, and she was like, oh, I want a nose job. I want Botox, I want this, I want this, I want this. And then she put in the next clip herself as a little girl, and she was so cute. And it was like, shut the fuck up. We don't need any of that. We're perfect just the way we are. And I was like, oh, I'm being so rude to her. I'm being, in doing that, I'm being so mean. And she doesn't deserve that. Just because, you know, we haven't been, that means nothing. That doesn't take away from the value of who we are as a person. What's going on in the slowest time ever in history of this industry is not defining of how good of a sister I am, of how kind of a coworker I am, or how meaningful I live my life, because my life is totally different. It is like melded with my artistry, but it does get to a point where you have to learn how to rewire your brain so that it's not be all end all, and it's not, this is my entire self-worth.
I agree. And then I guess that begs the question, which is the whole purpose of this podcast, is how do you, I'm going to use the word respect because I feel like I was really smart saying that.
No, I liked that.
How do you...
disrespectful to yourself when you don't practice gratitude. I 100% agree. I think that's so true.
How do you respect you and your happiness, and how do you honor that and not let your job, whether it is acting or a 9-to-5 or whatever, how do you not let that disrespect you and your happiness? How do you maintain your happiness while also respecting your artistry or your job? And what does that respect look like? Does that mean doing everything you can to achieve your goals? Or does that mean respecting the craft only and not letting other things like content creation and followers cloud that? And I think that's individual. I think that it's not going to be the same for everyone. But I think it's really important to figure out what that means for you.
I think if I were to speak for myself, one thing that I really loved, I listened to a podcast. I got into the habit of setting my sun alarm, which is an amazing thing. If you don't have one, I highly recommend getting one. You essentially wake up with your light. It was just a really pretty ambient light, and it gets gradually brighter in your room, so you feel like you're waking up to the sun, even if it's the dead of winter and it's raining every single day or whatever. I got into this habit of waking up really early in the morning and going to listen to podcasts in the gym in my apartment. And I would often listen to the Mel Robbins podcast. I really like her. I think she's so wonderful. And
I just started listening to her.
Oh, really? Okay, perfect. So you know how awesome she is. But she was talking about how it's so important in the first, I can't remember if it was 30 minutes. I feel like it was an hour. The first hour of your day, shut your phone off. Shut your phone. You would not. Because I'll wake up and I'll immediately start scrolling on Instagram. And that is disrespectful to myself. Because her explanation of it is you wouldn't let all 70 of those people into your bedroom bright and early in the morning and invade how you start your day. So be respectful of yourself. You know, go do a little workout and have your coffee and eat your breakfast, and then accept these things into your life and take in the content that you want or whatever. But start your day for you. So I've been trying to do that. I've been really trying to not go on my phone. I feel like it's hard in this industry. You always kind of need to have your emails open, but I really try to not go on my Instagram. And I'll go do a little workout, get my body moving, she suggests. And just kind of, you know what, it's really funny. I feel like I can't concentrate because I'm just thinking of this one story. I read somewhere that it's fantastic to combat anxiety to not go on your phone at all for the first hour of your day. The first and only day I ever implemented this, no joke, I see an email that says, urgent tape to be done immediately. And I see this 2 hours after it had been sent to me because I started my new practice of respecting myself. And I was like, no! And so I look into it. It was due. It was already due. I threw on some makeup. I learned the lines as fast as I could. I ended up booking it, which was crazy.
What?
That was Elevator Game. I literally booked Elevator Game after.
But doesn't that say so much, though? That, again, how we were talking about, and I understand, I believe in, you know, breaking it down and putting your time in and all of that, but at the same time, I think some of the best work comes when you haven't overthought it, you're not allowing it to take away from yourself and your day, aside from what it's, you know, meant to. And it's free, and it's, you know, and you did it, and I'm sure you did maybe a couple takes and you were like, okay.
I think I only did one.
Yeah.
I kid you not.
Yeah.
I think I only did one take of it. And normally, especially in that period of time, I would sit down and I would Uta Hagen the crap out of it. I would where am I? What's the weather? Who am I talking to? How do I feel about them? How do they feel about me? And it would be this whole thing. And I don't know. I think there is something to be said about just trusting your initial instincts, because I put 2 seconds into that. Not in a way that I didn't care, but that I had literally no time. Yeah. It was like, throw on the purple eyeshadow and you're edgy and you're in it and whatever. And I ended up booking it. And literally within that day, I was at Save on Foods. I got a 3-week supply of groceries. I'm on my way home. So my agent calls me and she's like, how fast can you be at the airport? This is all in the span of the same day. And this was all within the time that I had sent off the tape, gone to Save on Foods, come home. I think it was 3:30, and she said, okay, you have a flight to Winnipeg at 9 o'clock. And I just packed my bag, and I left, and I went home, and I shot Elevator Game, and it was so wonderful. But the one day that I start a practice just for myself,
isn't it?
So now I'm a little paranoid. I think there is, you know, there is a little bit of, you have to have a little bit of a mix of both. So yeah, maybe I will just see if I have any important emails, but I'm not going to go on Instagram because that's not going to serve me.
Yes, that's
even
exactly.
With time restrictions on Instagram.
I have time restrictions. I have time restrictions on Instagram and TikTok, and every time the little thing comes up that's like, you've been on for, I think it's
ignore all day.
And I'm like, nope, ignore, next.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so bad.
There's like ignore for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I always just ignore all day. I'm accepting this.
Yeah.
Totally. But I try, and I think, you know, having that set in place for yourself, you're putting in an effort.
The effort's there.
Yeah, the effort's there. I try to stick to effort. They have to be tangible goals, because I will just all of a sudden go, oh, I'm on Instagram for a bajillion hours a day, to I'm only going to go on for 5 minutes a day.
Yeah,
That's
exactly. It's not realistic.
You know, that's not realistic.
And I will say, again, not to just like all over social media, for me, for my makeup class, I get a lot of inspiration from Instagram and TikTok for that. So there is a lot of good to it. And that's the hard thing, and that's why it's so addicting, is it's not all bad, but you know, I'll be calling my fiance if I'm away from him to say goodnight or whatever, and he'll be like, are you okay? And I'll be like, I hurt my feelings on Instagram again. And it's always, like you said, it's when I'm doom scrolling before I go to bed, or I'm doom scrolling right when I wake up. And it's like, okay, you're now ending your day with feeling like you're so much less than all these other people who are booking all these things and are at all these premieres and are getting all these auditions, or you're starting your day like that. Mm-hmm. And
it sets a bad tone.
It sets a bad tone. It's not good. My little achievable goal, because again, I think that's a big thing, right? It's particularly with an artistic career, because there is no you know, okay, A, B, C, is having those goals in place. And I do feel like a lot of the times it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna, whatever this really lofty goal is, and it's great to have it, but like you said, it's like, okay, we need something attainable right now. So my attainable thing has been eating breakfast before drinking coffee, because your girl drinks a lot of coffee on an empty stomach.
They say 90 minutes. You need 90 minutes.
Yeah.
No, but those are really tangible goals. And I think maybe if I had set for myself, I'm only gonna, this sounds like a lot, and I feel really, not pathetic. I feel pathetic saying this, but
No!
maybe if I were to say, okay, my allotted Instagram time per day is gonna go to an hour, then that would actually be attainable, and I wouldn't just always be hitting the ignore button. So I wouldn't always just be in this rhythm of, well, I'm gonna hit ignore anyway, so it's fine. I'd be like, oh my gosh, I did it today. So then the next day, I would think, I'm gonna get off before again, so that I keep my streak going. And then slowly, an hour becomes 45 minutes, becomes 30, becomes whatever, before you're not welcoming that so much into your day.
And I think that can be, like, attainable goals. I think that's really important too for when you are making your art or practicing your art. Like, recently I've made it a goal for myself when I do my self-tapes that I'm not going to spend more than an hour taping. I'm not going to do more than, depending on the tape, right? Some things, I know we both read for something recently that had no lines, but it was a whole production of
it was such a
physicality. It was a whole thing.
You had to start music at one point.
Oh man,
there was a lot.
Side note: I'd love to see yours if you're willing to share. Yeah, I'll show you. I'll show you yours, and you'll show me mine.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, attainable goals that are going to give you that momentum to feel better about yourself. Because if you're constantly like, okay, I'm only gonna, social media, since that's been what we've been talking about, I'm only gonna spend, 5 minutes on social media, and then every day you're still hitting ignore, and it's like, all right, well, try again tomorrow, right? I think, again, going back to the respect, it's like, okay, make something that's realistic, that you can stick to, and you can respect the goal, and you can respect yourself by achieving it, and you're going to feel so much better. And yeah, like with my tapes, I've been, unless I want to do my makeup, I have been trying to focus a lot less on my physical appearance when it comes to my tapes. Honestly, that's a big thing for me. I don't know what it is, and I'm sure you probably feel the same way, but I put a lot of my value, maybe this is just being a woman, I don't know, but I put a lot of my value in what I look like. And being in an industry that is a visual medium does not help that, I'm sure. But at the same time, that's also so unimportant, So that's been something that I've been really focusing on. It's like, okay, I don't do a full face of makeup unless I want to, or it's like really important for the character. I'm not going to do a Hallmark audition with no makeup, but, only spending a certain amount of time on tapes, only allowing myself a certain number of takes, because I actually, I listened into a casting director thingy. I don't even know what you'd call it. Last year, I guess. And one of the casting directors in BC, I don't remember who it was, but they said that they can tell when you're submitting your 12th take. And I was
actually going to say that when we were chatting about that. I've heard that a few times, casting directors say, if you're on your 16th take, we can tell. Which makes sense, because you probably feel gassed and you probably look drained. So, because it takes so much out of you. So
it takes so much out of you. And like I said, when I was talking about when I would do 16 takes, everything is choreographed at that point. Like, all your beats are robotic almost, and you might make it look genuine, but it's not. They can tell,
I think if you're married to what you're doing so intensely too, saying my lines when I'm rehearsing them exactly the same way, and that's so programmed in my head that is how it's supposed to be, that when I go do the tape, I'm not focused on adapting, being loose, having fun, receiving what my reader's giving me, and playing off of that. I'm just, did I hit that note that I had prepped for myself? That doesn't exist. And
Yes.
I get so frustrated.
It didn't happen to me, and I'm glad that I was prepared. But yeah, I had just like a one-liner on a show back in May, and the reason why this happened was because my character comes in and walks into this conversation and maybe kind of catches the tail end of it, but in the sides, that's not how it read. Mm-hmm. But because of when I was getting action. And I guess maybe, I don't know if I was 100% nervous, but because maybe my pace was a little faster or slower sometimes, I don't know. But sometimes I would get to my mark before their conversation was done. So it would have looked stupid and been totally unnatural for me to walk up and then have this line when this guy's just said something gross and sexual to this girl and to not react to that.
Yeah.
Right? So you have to be malleable. And if you've dug yourself into these railroad tracks of, okay, I've done it 17 times this way, here's my 18th. And I feel like it also becomes frustrating. And again, disrespectful to yourself. Disrespectful to your art.
And you're like, why can't I do this? And why can't I get it right?
Because you watch your take back and you're like, okay, I know what adjustments I need to make. And then you do it the exact same way. And then you're mad and you're disappointed at yourself because you're like, why couldn't I just get it? Because I know what I needed, or I know what I wanted to adjust, but you're so stuck that you can't.
I'll have a tape and I'll do something and I'll say a synonym for one of the words and it doesn't matter. And I'll stop myself and I'm like, oh gosh, I ruined it. And my partner's like, what are you doing? That was your best tape. Who cares if you said also instead of to? Like, that's not a thing. Your tape is so much more important than that. And so I think that's really, I've seen other people do that too, where they're like, oh, I said this word and it's supposed to be this word and it means the same thing. It does not change the dynamic of the scene or what's supposed to happen or what's going to happen. It doesn't change any of that. But we're so hard on ourselves and we turn so inward. I think rewiring is so important. And I think even though, did you say that it was when you were pinned for blood that you started appreciating, you were grateful for XYZ? Yeah. Even though it's rooted, and it's been the same way for me at a lot of points in my life too, but even though it's rooted in something that isn't, I don't want to say the healthiest, but something that is based off of validation or whatever. Thing. Yeah. It's a good practice and it's a good thing to remember and a good reminder to yourself, I can live like this all the time if I really wanted to. So instead of at night before bed, maybe doom scrolling and then going, oh, what do I not have? Spending that time, what was I so grateful for today? Just reworking how you spend your day and focusing on gratitude and focusing on, I really liked this part of my day and I felt really good when this happened today. And just looking at it from that perspective, which is easier said than done.
Totally.
But just focusing more on that.
Very much so. I think I really like the 5-minute journal. This is not sponsored, by the way. I like it and I kind of tailored it myself. So off the top of my head, I think it's three things that you're grateful for, 2 affirmations. This is the morning and then there's like a night part as well.
Okay.
And honestly, I don't think I ever did a night part, which is so bad. But I at least started my day. But I like to add, 3 things that I'm grateful for, 2 affirmations. I like to add, I think I would just do 1, but I would do 1. I'd write down 1 small actionable step that I can complete today that will further me towards one of my goals. And 1 thing that I'm proud of myself for. And that was like so good for me. I think that's something, like you said, we beat ourselves up so much that just stopping for a second and being like, hey, you've actually done really well. You can like be proud of where you're at right now.
Law of attraction too. Because I think if you're always focusing on the good things, then you're putting yourself in a good mindset and you're putting yourself almost tapped into this energy where you know you deserve good things and they just naturally come. I deserve it. Why shouldn't I? I deserve it. I deserve good things, and looking at it that way.
That reminds me, it was actually a quote from that same red carpet, where the person was like, your average is good enough. It was someone else, but they said, you carry who you are with you. So you can, I mean, there's so many contradictory theories and whatever, but fake it till you make it, yes. But if you are not confident, if you are down on yourself all the time, if you're negative and you don't believe that your work is good enough, that people see that. Even though you might carry yourself otherwise or try to, people see that. You really, and again, like, it's so much easier said than done. Lack of confidence or feeling like you don't deserve it for whatever reason, people see that. It's like desperation, right? How casting directors say that they can like see the desperation in people, and it's a turnoff for them, honestly. Not that you should live your life by what the casting director thinks, because that's the whole point of this
But I think
podcast.
it's important to tap into like these unhelpful mindsets.
Yeah.
I've had a coach tell me, and this kind of opened my eyes to a lot. They said, you are such a nice person, and I feel like you prioritize that over, you put other people's needs above your own, and in doing that, you're letting these people, you're basically saying, okay, you can have the role, go ahead and take it, instead of living like, I own it, I deserve it, I am it. You almost apologize for your existence.
Mm-hmm.
So it is something to be mindful of, the feeling of the desperation and that coming through, and the feeling that, oh, do I deserve this? Just like grounding yourself, centering yourself, making things in your life unrelated, purposeful, that make you just know that you're worth it, regardless of what's going on. If that's a yoga class, if you're part of a climbing group, if you do your pottery class every so often, like just these things that you can do for yourself. It's important to live above all else for yourself.
For yourself. Yeah. And that's what's going to allow you to pursue happiness while pursuing a career in the arts.
A career in the arts. Well, there you go.
There we have it, folks. Thanks for hanging out with our intimate 3-hour FaceTime. We'll see you guys next time.
Yeah, next Thursday.
Thursday.
Yeah.
8 p.m. EST, baby.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.